So we need our chair, our body, and a ball. And if you don't have a ball, you could use a block. Okay, but we're going to start in our restorative bone therapeutics today when we're sitting with the chair back against the wall. And it's important so that you can put some effort into some of these patterns. So you feel they give something sturdy under and behind you, hoping that the chair stays upright. But we're going to begin with the ball between the knees and get a feel of how you're sitting upright. If I push back in the chair, I tend to slump a bit. So I find that the sitting bone structure, it's an interesting kind of structural unit. Like it's your seat kind of stretches out. It's almost like you want to reach for the rear sides and make sure that it is a good sitting path. And then the knees have something to push into. So let's work with some fatiguing of the leg muscles. So I want you to get a feel when your ball is right between the knees so you can actually push into it with the knees, the bones, not so much the thigh. I know this is structurally stuff too, but I want you to feel where the bone matters. And you're going to push into the ball and alternate with an experience of inhale, the ball is, you're not pushing into it. And then exhale, you're squeezing the ball. So find that repetition and if possible, relax your eyes. We'll take about a half a minute to do this beginning experience with breathing and the muscles. So you're breathing, you have breathing muscles, of course, but when you're sitting upright, it seems like a different task than if you're on a bolster on the side or on your back. So kind of liberate the sensation of sitting up, right? Crown of the head towards the ceiling. And the next time you squeeze the ball, hold that. Don't hold your breath, but hold the squeeze. Let the muscles really kind of grow in their effort. Okay, and then let the hands slide down to the sides of the chair. And I would actually hold as far down naturally. I don't want you to round your back to grip the leg of the chair, but reach down. So if you have longer arm, holding the seat of the chair might not work. But for me, I can even hold the leg of the chair. That's exciting. And then when I get a hold of that chair, I'm going to tilt my left ear to the shoulder and I'm still going to remind myself to squeeze the ball because I relax that for a moment. But keep squeezing to fatigue, right? So you're going to maintain that. Bring your head back center. Take a pretty delicate lean with your right ear to the right shoulder. And let's go one more time each side. Try to keep the chest lifted. And then as you're going through this pattern of leaning your ear to the shoulder, slide the hands back on the seat of the chair so that the shoulders are really opening the chest. Okay, so that last time with the head movement. So feeling the shoulders center, sending them back. So the chest is opening. Okay, now relax the grip on the ball and feeling where the ribs rise. Okay, release the left hand from holding the chair and reach it over to the right knee. And I would imagine that holding and reaching to the side of the right knee could be a little challenge. So I encourage you to squeeze the ball, okay, because then you will be a little closer to you, just a tiny bit. And then as you turn, let this twist, since my right hand is on the seat, let the twist be actually pretty mild. So feel if your breath helps you arrive at that rotation. So motion the ribs. You try to use your structure to kind of push it, but feel if you can breathe. Feel that cycle of exhalation turning you a tiny bit so the upper back part of your right side of your back has some motion. Okay, and now as you come back to the front, relax your gripping on the ball, bring your right arm over the left, give yourself a hug. So you reach your hands to it's really the sides of the arms. It's not so much the back, So you reach for the arm side, so the upper kind of the placement, the attachment pieces. You can feel your pieces stuck together there. And then as you lift up the chest, keep it simple, feel the elbows center down like you're trying to squish your chest. So your elbows push down, but the chest lifts up, strengthening the back. It's really simple. Okay. Now press down into your heels. Okay, lean forward. We're still going to stay in the chair. We're not coming up, but lean forward like you're bowing towards the earth here. But the chest is still centered, right? You're not tipping your forehead down, I hope. And then come back up and your arms are already ready. So inhale, belly soft, exhale, squeeze the ball. Inhale, relax the grip on the ball, but keep it right between. And then turn left, but see if you can keep that hold of the hands to the shoulders. So when you twist to the left, you're moving your waist. Okay, this is tricky. Make sure the knees are not kind of zigzagging around. They're still completely just naturally holding onto the ball. Right hand lowers to the outside of that left, actually the knee if possible. Reach the left hand back to the seat of the chair and carefully balance the weight in your sitting bones. And that might help the knee experience. So sometimes my knee will kind of dash a bit forward, but letting the weight center in the sitting bones. Feel the natural arch of the spine. And now left hand releases the grip of the chair. The side was a little quicker, I guess. Left arm crosses over the front, giving yourself a hug. And then here, as you lift the chest, lean forward. Notice the awareness of belly and hips and that crease. Okay, let's stretch that out. So we'll come back up to center. Release the grip of the shoulders and remove the ball. And let's turn so that we shift our legs to the right of the chair. Okay, now this is where you might, if you're tall, put a blanket on the chair seat. So I'll show you how you would do that. If you're short, like me, you probably really won't find this to be helpful. It won't hurt you, but it's not going to be super helpful. But this is helpful if you're tall. It's helpful for your knee. So you move over towards the right. Okay, you got to have the right leg on the blanket. You don't want to have you kind of falling off of it. And you'll step the left foot back. Now there's no turn with the foot. I don't want you to pivot and twist the knee. I want you to just step the left foot back. And if the blanket doesn't feel like it's enough lift, because you're tall, you could add a little more height. You could just keep adding height. Bolster's too much, it won't work. But the blanket's mashable. So with that left leg back, let's say you feel, oh, it's a little much in my knee position, you might lean forward into the right thigh. I'd rather have you lunging versus this direction, pushing back and feeling that onto the knee. So some of you might be just fine sitting upright with the right sitting bone on the seat or the blanket, the left thigh stretching back, and you can relax the left knee, but you don't have to push back into the heel. But make sure that the left foot is in an angle where the toes facing right towards this right side. And you can feel how the connection is into, I hope not too much into the knee, but the stretch in the front of that left thigh. It should feel kind of passive. Like you just hang with it. Okay, now feel how the abdomen is centered. And we're going to turn to the right. Try to isolate from your knee to this area. So I keep the knee right where it's at. I don't try to twist any knees. Lift the ribs. Try to press down. So my right foot, for me, I'm kind of short. So my foot touching the ground is slightly challenged. So probably the blanket is not helping that for me. Right, so you can tell how the blanket is good for tall, long legs, great. But short probably would make it hard for me to feel the floor with my foot. Okay, now turn so your hands hold the back of the chair, right? So you can hold, if you have a large back of the chair, you might go a little lower on it. I don't want you to go way high because you want to work on your thoracic, so this rib spacing, turning, kind of shuffle the breath. And then the abdomen, like the navel center, doesn't have to take the twist. Okay, so give it just a few moments here. Use that awareness of the right hand pushing and the left hand pulling. So if you don't like to use the blanket, if it's hard for you to feel the floor, I would just remove it. So get a feel of pulling with the left hand, pushing with the right. Remember, you want to feel a little weight into your right foot. And now when you come back through center, it'll be interesting. You'll turn to the front, right away from the wall, sitting on your chair like you started. And I want you to take that right foot, cross the right foot to the left knee, get your bolster, and then place it forward. Could be in front of your left foot, might be a little farther. This is probably not what you expected we were going into, but here we go. Lean into it. I hope your left knee is fine, right? It just had a little experience of work and a different tilt in the angle of the stress on it. So feel how your left foot presses down. You might scoot it in closer, just don't let the knee go over the toes. You can flex your right foot. And as you lean forward, try to keep the chest reaching. Yeah, avoid rounding your head down and feeling that neck pull. Feel that you're reaching forward. I know it's very tempting to do the rounding. It feels in the moment like it's the most soothing, but in the long run, right, it's not going to help our back. When we get on our back, we can feel the soothing patterns, but still keep the spine strong. So we'll get there. But now as you lean forward, you decide. I like the bolster on this one. If you have a saggy bolster, it would be a bad experience, I think. So if your bolster kind of goes in half, this might be bad. You might need another chair. Okay. But when you lean forward, feel the weight in your sitting bones, especially the left one. Okay, come back up through to center and put the bolster, it could be on the floor next to you. It doesn't have to be a special spot. Lift up the right leg, and I want you to hold under the leg. Avoid grabbing the knee and pulling it. Just hold under the leg and circle. So kind of think my circle is like the size of that ball I was using. It's not a really huge circle with the knee. I'm holding the back of the leg, stimulating the hip. It shouldn't hurt your knee at all, but it might fatigue your hip a bit. So go both directions, circle, so about 4 times. Now see if you can let the dead weight of the leg be in your arms. That's challenging, just to let the weight be in the arms. Give them a little workout. Okay, now center the hips, lift up the waist, stretch out that right leg, flex the foot, hold the undercarriage of that right leg. Try to pull so that you can sit up. That's all. You just want to sit upright. So flexing, of course, keep that same instruction. We do this with the belt all the time. But I mentioned to those that arrived early today, we're just not going to use our belt today, but this would have been a good belt one. Okay. So, notice the underside of the leg, maybe the workout in it. And then as you bend the right knee, try to move the chest a little forward and then step down to that right foot. And then take a moment where you feel your feet about hips distance apart, sitting on the chair. Lift up through the ribs. Okay, I imagine you might feel lopsided after what we just did. Like this side feels lower, the right side, this side feels a little higher. So just different releasing patterns. So let's go to the other side. Now, if you didn't like the blanket, don't use it on this side. I can't get my foot on the ground when I use that. Okay, use it if it helps you. Okay, turn left. So left leg steps off the chair, right leg reaches back. Okay, so my right leg back, my left foot steps off. I can finally feel the floor. I don't need my right leg straight behind the buttock. It doesn't help. If I do try to force that, it just doesn't feel very helpful for my hip joint. But of course, I don't want the leg like out here. You know, I don't want it to fling out, and I definitely don't want my heel down. So I find what my natural gait is with my hip. Okay, and really work on the feel of motion, whether you need to tip forward, whether you add your blanket to the seat. Okay, you might be surprised, it might feel great to have that extra boost on the seat. Who knows? And then ribs central, you might tickle your ribs here, okay, kind of in the centerpiece. And then feel when you turn to the left, you'll reach for your chair. If you've got these, the back of the chair, when it's a backless chair, it's kind of nice because you can hold the pieces, right? And then pull with the right hand and push with the left. Don't get too don't exaggerate too much of that because it's overdone often. So it's overdone because the breath can kind of struggle. So feel, maybe closing your eyes and make any movements or accommodations for your body posture. So if you go, oh, well, I'm tired. Maybe you want to slide your right foot in. Just feel where that's at. Feel if you slide it back. Breathe. Feel how the body turns all the way up in the top to the left. Okay, now as you work your way back, take it slow. So your turn style of the waist towards the center. Slide that right foot to the center of the mat in front of you, and then you turn back away from the wall. And then position your seat. If you don't like the blanket under you for this part, I can imagine some of you might remove it. But you might start to go, I like this height. So left foot crosses to right knee, and then feel without the bolster for a moment. See if this encourages that circulation in the hip. And I think I like the bolster somewhat. I don't know if it's that important for me. It's nice to have that addition. So go ahead and add your bolster, unless you like this without the bolster. You might feel the ribs and the lung force, right, the breath differently when your arms are attached to the pose. Because the arms aren't always attached to your poses, huh? Last thing you knew they were attached, but it's nice to feel a little more full body in each pose. So flexing the foot, I know is recommended. And so if you get a feel of flexing your left foot, if you go back to neutral foot and it doesn't hurt your knee, it's probably just fine. But feel when you lean forward, and then when you reach with the hands, and then stretch a little bit further. Now you don't have to keep going and going till you're slumping. That's not a good idea. But you are trying to get your waist towards the legs. Right, so I'm trying to get my waist to stack towards my legs. I might not be there for a while, or maybe it's something I used to do, but I'm trying to decide if I should go to again for a stretch. Okay, now the left hip got to stretch, so come back up. Let's see. Yes, put the bolster so it's easy access to grab in a moment, okay? And then as you lift up that left leg with the hands holding under, weight of the leg into the hands. And then circle. It might not be very interesting, but do the work of that hip rotation. So this is like a very basic, it's so elementary, but it's nice to go both directions. Just to kind of get a feel for the body weight of a leg. And then once you stretch it out, reach through the leg, feel the undercurrent of the stiffness of the leg. And then reach through that left heel, flexing. Lift up the chest, maybe closing the eyes, so that you can kind of categorize what's important here for you to refine the pose. So if I close my eyes, I can kind of tune into how my right knee is getting a little shifted. It's kind of sloppy out to the side. I'm going to push down into the heel, keep the spine ripening up. Good. And then let the left knee bend. And then as you shift your feet so they're in a wide stance, you're going to get the bolster and take it forward. So you'll take the forward bend. It'll be simple, right? Some of us will find that we can hold the chair legs on this, but I just can't see how that could be good for my back in the long run. So I'm going to go this version. But if you like to touch the legs of the chair and take a little deeper back stretch, you could. But this way I'm capable of keeping that extension of my spine and also working with the compartments of like the movement into my shoulders, my upper lungs, my breath in that upper back. It's good work. You just have to take the time to do it. You know it feels like helpful. So this gets in the shoulders at this point. We're now getting into that space. So let's lower down the bolster, and we're going to get to the bolster as well. So I want you to step your feet to an arrangement where when you go diving into the bolster, we're going bolster diving now. You might feel, okay, how I step into it might be you just kind of pitch yourself out of the chair, but feeling how the range is for your waist, which I think we're all pretty good with this range. It's kind of coupling it with the knees, isn't it? So you could use blocks under your hands, or you could stretch forward, and then as you walk your hands on floor, like you're crawling, it should just seem really awkward. That's the best way. And then step your feet back, step them almost as wide as the legs of the chair, just about to that point, but inside the feet of the chair. And then you're going to lower down. I want you to scoot your bolster back just a bit so that your body is on the bolster. You're going to lean down. The bolster is lengthwise, right? So you'll stretch the waist down. Work our upper back without pushing into our shoulders. Okay. So feel how your waist and even the pulse of the belly becomes apparent here. Stretch the arms back so they're by your sides, palms towards your body. Feel the current of lifting the chest. Okay, now the hips might have trouble pushing into the bolster. All right, they don't have the same leg strength, right, to thrust towards the bolster. So you're working your spine, your posterior spine. So just working the paraspinals here. Okay. Yeah, this is a good one for our neck because it's hard to get the movement up. But it's not a pose you're going to really round deeply. Like you're not going to, this is wrong. So you're working the spine, the paraspinals to get here. Okay, let's put our hands down because it's a relief. Push into up dog. Use the bolster. If it just feels awkward, you can move it a little forward or turn it horizontal. So feel that lift of the center piece of the body. Okay, and then we want to keep the momentum. It's easy to take a nap right now, but push into the hands. Lean your head down so that you can group the motion of the hips back. And then we're going to work our way into hands, knees. If you need a blankie under your knees, add it. And you'll round your back to chin towards chest, not necessarily chin towards belly, right? It's chin towards chest. And then you can articulate arching the spine now. Move the hips back, the chest forward. Round your back. Arch the back. Follow one movement, one breath per movement. Okay, so as you alternate, inhale the arch. Okay, now see if the sensation of your seat changes, like your buttocks, like when you round and flex the spine, Does it feel like you grip them? So I want you to work on the spine movement, not gripping the glutes. That's kind of interesting, right? So I think probably we've all been in patterns where we're just trying to figure it out, right? How to figure out the motion. So next time you motion the spine to the arch, we're going to use our blocks. So let's see, we'll move our bolster to the side. Okay, and we'll grab a couple blocks and step into a right leg up lunge. So I want your lunge, meaning your knee is off the ground. So take 2 blocks, take the knees closer. If you got a blanket, you can keep it. And then step the right foot forward and then toes under left foot. So feel the momentum of spine into leg and then lift up the back knee. Press that left heel behind you. So of course that's helping the stretch. And then why not? Let's do this. Let's take the blocks up higher. So we're all going to feel a little taller. And if your leg is really close to the chair, that's great. You want to have something to back you up so you can't go farther. And then you'll stretch that left heel towards the ground and make sure that each leg is in a different track. And noticing we're pretty low with the arms. We're going to do this with the chair, which is just a little higher than this, right? It's not that much higher. But just kind of reflect on this. We're not at the chair yet with the hands, but feel the stretch of the right hamstring. Okay, the left heel stretching down. If it's shaky and it doesn't want to aim to the floor, let the left foot step a little bit over to the left, but not turning the foot out very much. Try to be careful how the left foot is pivoting. Okay. All right, bend the right knee so it feels like it's just above the ankle. The back heel lifts up now. And then work our way towards up. So we're lunging and a higher lunge, the hands to the thigh. See if you can keep it so it's posturally, you're competent, right? You're using the structure of the feet to hold your balance. It's a balance pose, really, isn't it? Yeah, and if I keep my hips in a kind of a neutral zone, not overly pushing my seat back, I'm really using my hip flexors so much on this in glutes. Right, so this whole mid section, lower core, leg. I know the right foot might turn in. It starts to go there. Okay, so lower down the hands, get the right foot so it's parallel. At least try to help my right foot go parallel, please. Parallel, please. Step the left foot to the right foot. Take a block between the knees. Okay, it could be a ball too, but a block is good because it's kind of defined. So have it between the knees, not so much upper thigh, and have some caution here. We're not going to try to take a big squat. I want you to feel the knees bending, the hips loading, load the hips, have your hands onto your hips, and then feel the ribs center forward. So I'm trying to lengthen my core here. Okay, now stand so that you have the block between the knees. Now the block is at its lowest setting, it's narrow. Now I try to feel the load into my heels. I'm just standing up. I have the spine naturally arching. Feel both arms reaching to the ceiling. Keep it central. So the block might be a little awkward sensation on one knee over the other, but try to feel that you're pushing into your center of your foot, the ball of the foot. Lift up through the spine. Okay, stretch the arms out to the sides, back behind you. Okay, keep it so their hands are apart here. Chest is forward, bend the knees, and then let your hands reach down. Now, I would take both blocks in front so they're at the highest setting, and then take your forward bend here so you have that natural tilt of the spine, or natural arch, I guess is the proper wording there. Okay, avoid this pitching and rounding here. So just see if you can work on strengthening. Doesn't mean you have to tighten the belly, just feel it move with the breath. It only helps. Okay, now feel how the back of the legs have this lift. It's kind of interesting. It could be difficult for some, but when you scoot your toes and heels closer together, you'll slide the blocks back, and so they're in line, they're besides each other, forward of to the sides, and but up from the toes. And then as you stretch back through the right foot, okay, we're going to keep the blocks this high. Just might as well, we know where we're going with it, huh? So the back heel lowers down, and we try to work on extending. We'll go right into the stretch of that front leg. This may be a simple path for circulation for you and your hamstrings or your calf, but it's still nice to keep that reach of the torso forwards, right? The chair will be nice to use soon because we can get a little more trunk length, but keep that reach of the torso. It's a fun word, isn't it? Torso. Not sure it's a favorite of mine. Okay. Left knee bends. Back heel lifts. Let it lift. Keep it lifting. Don't worry about keeping the back heel down. The heel is up. And the weight is now in my hands. Don't like that too much. So I'm going to try to transfer and load to my hips. So feel as you move your hands to that left leg, you're trying to balance. I know it's a whole balance experience. So if you're, like, could this pose be over? You might put your hands back on the blocks. You might see if you can get a little bit higher up with the crown of your head. Maybe that's better for your balance versus this kind of tipping position. But that coordination in the centerpiece of the body is a big impact, right? So feel where the weight balances in your both of your hips. I think this is a big one for my supporting my knee structure, but I have to be careful on how much I press down, but just keeping that hip engagement. Good work, good work. So manage the movement of the left thigh weighted. So it's not just a knee load. It's like my thigh feels this, it's toned. And then as I lunge forward into that left thigh, okay. Now we're going to take a turn to the right. So you're going to take a wide stance, like you would in down dog, but well, actually you wouldn't, you have your feet closer, but it's the same expression of the arm. So I'm going to take a turn to the right, like you're playing Twister here, taking your blocks across. Okay, feet are parallel. They might start to turn in, but see if you can manage the weight into your heels. Okay, that's the difference from this and dog pose, right? Dog pose is hard to get to the heels. But when you stretch the hands in front, you could have your hands flat on the ground. They could be flat on the blocks with a low setting. And then let the chest stretch. Head between the arms. Feel the reach of the hips. Okay, take some quality offerings into your legs. So if you're pitching back and the back of the knees are overstretching, you can pull the thigh bones up, right? Like you're sucking up the quadriceps. Now that massages the circulation around the knee, but when I try to perform that with my leg, I can feel one leg do it easier than the other. So I'm gonna do a little micro bend instead, because they're not balanced with that position for me. So keep the reach. If it's too wide of a stance, you can scoot the feet a little closer in if you're slipping. Let your head lower between, so they're between the arms or a slight bit lower than that. Okay, and take a moment where you wag your tail a little side to side. So keep the chest muscles stretching. Yeah, this is a fabulous way to get the arm stretch, the waist movement, and the leg stretching at the same time. Okay, now lean the weight forward into your hands, and then we'll turn. Now we're going to get to our chair work. So you can turn, I guess we haven't been doing chair work, huh? Turn towards your chair, You don't have to move your blocks away from the screen, but I'm going to. Okay, so hands on the seat. Keep the lunge. Okay, so let that right knee kind of strut a little forward of the hip. And look back at your hip area. You can't really see each hip, I'm sure, but you can tell if they're swaying a little side to side. I want you to stay so that there's some control with the motion into that right knee. So we're going to go right into this balance. We're going to try half moon. So I'm going to slide my right foot back so I can see it underneath me. It's not hidden under the chair. It's right underneath that right knee. I'm going to let the weight go pouring into the right heel. And I've got to be careful I don't push the knee over the toes, right? So I have to just lift the back leg. Yeah, so it's like less is more intense for this one, isn't it? You don't want to try to push your head forward. But feel the leg lift. Now you could walk your hands forward. What I like to do on this is keep my right hand down if it's the right leg down, turn the left hip open. And then as I work on keeping the bottom of the foot balanced, I can stretch the left hand to the wall. I find that to be the most productive for me. So my knee is not zigzagging. This is pretty harmful if my knees keeps twisting. So I have to work on loading up higher in my inner leg, my adductor. Okay, now turn. If you have this movement, you're going to turn. So if some of us might stay here, right, with the leg lifting. Warrior 3. Okay, now lower the left foot down. Keep it simple. We've done some of these patterns, so I want you to just have the hands holding the sides of the chair. Make sure it's stable, it's against the wall. It's stable, that's a key. Right foot steps back. My feet are a little closer than hips distance, but not touching toes. And then move my hips down and swoop through the waist to stretch the chest up. Shouldn't feel too bad. Come back to chair dog. Feet step out and then stretch the chest gently. You can let your head center between the arms. Yeah, quite a bit of energy through the legs so far today, huh? A lot of leg work. Okay, and feeling if the position of the hands helps encourage that stretch of the back into the waist. Yeah, chairs are great for getting the back to stretch. Okay, now when you step your feet back towards each other, if you didn't already, take the left foot. Now this time, let's try going right into half moon from momentum. Momentum's your friend for balance, isn't it? So step forward, you can see your foot under you, it's not hidden, and lift the right leg up. Okay, see if you can look back so the hips in the beginning are nearly levelized, so your right leg is not lifting up any higher. The right hip, sorry, than the left hip. The leg is lifting higher now. Okay, now when you set yourself into the balance of half moon, you'll push into your left heel, keep your foot parallel towards the wall, and then you're working all the way up to this left attachment of the sitting bone. And as you turn to the right leg open, you might have to be really careful with this left leg so the knee doesn't wobble too much. So you might keep your hands on the seat. You might find, oh, I can creep my right hand up the wall and try to maintain that rotation. Push through the right foot, right? Try to push back. And all we need is another wall, huh, for this one. So you have something to support you with that rotation. Strengthen into the right hip. Breathe. Be careful of the left knee, don't let it twist in. Okay, and then lower that right hand to the chair, seat. Pivot the waist, actually pivot the hip and the leg towards center. And then when you step back, I want you to manage that reach back into your feet so your heels are up. The heel raises are great. So this is not your typical heel raise, I guess, but it adds on some element of coordination here. Okay, now When you reach the waist towards the wall and try not to hinge at your hips, you're stretching the front of the hips, right? You're lengthening. Okay. Try to stay with this. We're going to lower down onto the knees. And then we're going to swing our feet to the side. And come down to your back. So you have a ball and a chair against the wall. Okay. So, yeah, you might try a little bit of core balance on this one, but let's see. Let's get a blankie just in case. I don't think everyone would use a really high blanket for this under your head. You probably want it to be flat. Could be folded once, is plenty. But it depends on the blanket you have, I guess. Not all blankets are equal. Okay, I'm going to swing my knees over the side so it's easier on my knee, and then let my legs lift up. Okay, slide back your shoulders. If the floor feels just a little too firm for you, you can always do these with like a very flat blanket, or something on the top of your mat. So add a ball, and if the ball connection will be back to the knees. Well, not the back of the knees, but back in between them. So I'm going to shift my feet to the seat. And I'm too close to the chair. Okay, so bring the ball, and it's got to be right between the bones of the knees. It can't be between fleshy thigh. Right? So you want to feel that you can squeeze it. Okay, so shift to the position where your blanket is just under your brain. It's not under your shoulders at all. In fact, you don't really want to feel it up at the shoulders. It's an illusion you even need it, I suppose, because but watching people in practice, it's really fascinating to see the movement of the neck and the difficulty getting back. So if you can lie on your back like this, you're accomplishing a little bit for your chest opening, even just this, okay? So push into your feet, lift up your hips. Don't worry about squeezing the ball. You're probably doing it like a 2% squeeze without doing anything. And then arms go back, and then lower the spine with the arms down by your sides. Yeah, fuss as much as you need to make this work. So if you need to get up and down and shift around, keep going with it, no worries. But when you lift up your hips, notice now the glutes are working, right? It's no longer just spine movement like we did with cat-cow. Okay, so alternating, I like to call this one drawbridge. Okay, now when you lower down through the spine, you might find this nice kind of coupling of movement between the spine sliding and stretching and the glutes working. So give yourself 2 more times of lifting and lowering, and feel the connection of the feet pushing into the chair. You don't have to work on getting as high with your hips as possible. It's about massaging your back. So then all of that kind of goes away. You just go, oh, I'm really connecting to the feeling. I'm strengthening into my hips. I'm massaging through my back. It's mostly spinal, right? It's not going to be, a ooey gooey massage. Structural work. Okay. Now, the next time you work your way into this shape, I want you to bring your knees to your chest. Okay, squeeze the ball, push into it. This means no feet on chair. You're offloading the feet here. And then relax the grip. Squeeze the ball. Squeeze the thighs in deep. Okay, and then relax. Now, place the feet into cobbler's pose. So feet together, knees apart. Don't think you need a ball. You're going to need some blocks very soon, so have them nearby. And give the adductors a few moments of working with gravity. So if my feet lightly separate, that's perfect. I'm not really interested in what it looks like. It's the feeling. And if you can start to find connections of the large pieces, like of you, like from your hip cord to your knee, there's a whole swath of stuff, right? Whether you want to call it muscle this or that, but it's a big piece. So you want that piece to gently stretch with gravity. And just feel the pieces kind of stretching, feel the spine centering, the natural arch for me of my low back. I can notice that. This might be when you need a higher blanket. You might go, I need it higher for the moment. So you can add that. Okay, now noticing that the legs have this motion out, knees out. Okay, then you're going to let the weight press towards your tailbone as you motion the knees back towards each other. Step the feet so they're, they're probably not as wide as hips distance because the chair is only so big, but you want to feel that they're separated. And then you'll get a block. I would get both of them. I think this basic bridge manner is pretty good. If I place the block side of my hips and they're at the second setting, and then I don't want to over effort this one. I don't want to do too much gripping. So I'm going to push into my feet. I'm going to scoop the back of the pelvis like that's a bowl, it's a basin. And I'm lifting up the hips. And I'm going to try to see how far do I have to go to get my hips up on the blocks, right? So I'm just going to go just that much. And then the blocks touch together. I'm going to push them up so they're under the lowest part of my back. And then just let my pelvis rest on the blocks. Yeah, just let it be kind of easy. So then you start to formulate these cycles of circulation in the pelvis, and then let the legs rest on the chair or keep the knees bent. You might not like this leg down on chair thing. Some just find this is better. And some just observing people, their choice. It's probably 50-50 on this one. Okay, blanket should be low. Okay, it shouldn't be like really rolled up high. In fact, mine somehow got to my shoulders. Got no idea. Usually people slide back on their mats. Okay, so shoulders roll in. Roll back, chest open, hands down, palms open. Just open the front. Okay, and allow the eyes to center in. If this feels too much pressure on your calves, like you can't believe how tense they feel, just let that circulation settle into the calves. Calves can always use some good flow. It's because we step on our feet often. So they're kind of the first area of pressure. So when you motion your breath, feel where it's located in the belly. Now the lower back should feel pretty comfy. It shouldn't feel like it's getting too much arch. It does have a significant amount of arch right now. But feel how the center of the body is slightly lifted. It's the energetics of inversion. So if you can start this so it just feels natural, not something awkward to do to help regenerate. And then you'll walk your feet up on the chair seat, of course, knees bend, and let both legs stretch up. Okay, reverse action, right? Reversing the flow of gravity to the upper body, to the heart. And this gives the heart a nice rest. Okay, avoid putting sand on your feet on this one. Just let your feet not be pushed on or stepped on at all, either upside down or the other way. Okay, and feel that you're kind of challenged on the hinge of the hip. You can't really position your feet farther back if you're doing this right. I guess you probably can, but you want to keep it in that lift, right? So you're trying to work on the lift of the legs verticality. Okay, flex the feet so the toes go towards you, your face. And then feel what happens when you relax your feet. Who knows, maybe one foot feels different than the other. So if you kind of twinkle your toes, this is a good one. Against the wall, which we will do, you can't do as much of this toe twinkling thing. It's different when you don't have anything behind your foot or under your foot. So feel a little bit of movement in your feet, very individualized, just maybe pointing, flexing, circling, or just twinkling them. And then bend through the legs. And we'll move the feet to press down onto the chair. And then as you push into your feet, again, reach for the blocks and just lift just the right amount for you to slide them out. But you know what? You got to kind of keep control on this one, right? You can't just drop your hips. Well, you could, but got to keep some control and then just the right amount. And then lower the spine down. I guess that's the science of this practice. We have to find the right amount of control to load the body and the bones, just the right amount, not too much, not stress. Okay. Now, I don't want us to shock the sacrum, so I want you to still keep this neutral spine. Okay, don't pull the knees to the chest. I know it's a habit here, but try to keep the sacrum in its natural tilt here. Okay, and then move the knees over left or right, doesn't matter to me, but you're going to roll to the side, carefully come up, and then slide your blanket in so that you have a big piece, right? A blanket. Doesn't have to change much, huh? I'm going to slide it right up to the feet of my chair and then sit on top. I think that's pretty good. And then as I move, now let's see. So why don't you got your chair to the wall. You're going to turn towards your left. Well, I'm turning towards you. Okay. But you turn to your left, so both the legs are over on this left side. Okay. Now bend the left knee so it points up. Let the knee position out and then see if you can lean to your hip and then stretch the right foot under the chair to the wall. What I'm trying to do is get our hips to work here in a good way. So I don't want us to go forward and then twist. So we're to the left. Now you're going to pull the left foot towards the right thigh with care on this knee. So yeah, I get a little cattywampus on this one as well. So if I try to keep this perfect, it's not going to work, right? I got a pelvis here and a mass of stuff. So I'm going to lean my hip back so I can stretch out my left thigh. So I like a ball. I think maybe the ball is perfect for this one under my left knee. I'm not concerned about my left foot touching my right thigh. Get a sandbag and add it to the upper left inner thigh. Okay. Take the motion so that your waist is centered like a belly button. If you had a little like a light that was stretched, that was shining out of it, or like some sort of ray of light, it's going to go towards the knee. So I want you to reach the right arm on the chair seat. Okay. Keep the belly button towards the left knee and then stretch the right hand either to the back. Some of you can hold the back of your chair probably. I'm not there. Okay, so my head's going to be leaning into my right hand. That works fine. Yeah, so for those of us that are short, this might be a pose where you get more support if you have a higher blanket, I suppose. You might add 2 of these in this flat spacing with a blanket. Be sure your right foot, the toes are up at the wall. If you have to peek, peek. You don't want it to turn out, right? I'm just going to see if my foot is doing what I thought it was doing. Sometimes it isn't. Okay, left arm is behind your back or it's up towards the wall. You choose, to the back or to the wall. And then organize how the body leans into the right side. You might feel kind of clenching up at the hip, but see if you can just settle into the right thigh. So breathing. The deep hip work can feel almost like when it responds negatively, it can feel like when your jaw tightens. So you want to feel You have more mass to work with than if you were focusing on relaxing your jaw, right? The buttocks, the hips, it's just more stuff. So feel that flow of body weight into the chair. Okay, now the waist is tilting a bit. So when you come up, use momentum. Bring the right hand to the left knee and rotate to the left. Should feel pretty basic. Push into the wall with your right foot. It's a big part of it. Yeah, feel that connection holding into your left knee. If that hurts your knee, don't hold it. You might slide above the patella. But if it feels okay, you might hold your knee. Encourage support into it. Little knee coat. Okay, good. Okay, now turn forward. Let's take it so that we move the right foot into a cross-legged position. But I want this to be just like 10 seconds, okay? So lean in towards the chair. Your sand is off, your ball is away. You lean forward. Okay, now shift back up to feeling like you're sitting tall. Chair is great to help out. Now I feel a little short with this one. Like if I had a little more height, it'd be perfect. So if you feel like that you need more blanket, just add it. Okay, I want you to feel like you don't have to slouch at all to do it. And now stretch the left foot under the chair right to the wall. Different coordination on this side because we're coming into this from facing the wall. Now when you turn to the right, this left hip is going to shift back over to the left. So you have to keep the foot at the wall and then pivot on the hip and try to maintain that support. When I bring my right foot towards my left leg, I try to maintain the support on the inside of the left knee, under the knee, and then adding a ball under the right knee. Might as well make it comfy. Comf knee. The comf knee position. So now I have sand and I'm adding it to the top of my right thigh. And I'm going to reach the chair with my elbow or my hand to the back of the chair and lean into it and take care that you have height. This is a great part of the chair on these poses. When we do them seated on a bolster, you have to work extra hard, and likely we have, there's some percentage we're faulty in it. So you want to keep that midsection lifting. Sometimes the only way to get the lift is with breath, I think. That's my only hope. Like, okay, I'll take a breath and feel that I lift. But in some ways, I also want my breath to move my belly and the diaphragm down. So that chest breathing is not going to do me any good. So kind of feel the breath orientation, the movement of the belly, the movement of the ribs. Push into that left foot, feel the waist turn. Okay, right hand is back on the floor. If you have your arm swung up towards the wall, bring it back. And left hand to that right leg. It doesn't feel like a lot of movement happens on this. It's like I tilt a little bit, keep the chest up, try to keep the breath in the belly. And then I turn to the right, just a tad. And I'm working on rigging up that strength along the spinal column, right? So this is all basically orienting around the axis of the spine. It's really not much more than that, is it? So hold on to the right knee with your left hand. Feel the body in rotation. Coordinate the movement of breath. Unlatch right hand from knee, turn, take the sand away. Actually, let's put it over on the left side carefully. And then bring your left foot cross forward to the right shin and bring your hands to the chair. And you might simply be here with the spine in its light arch and just that. It might be plenty. But if you lean forward, I'm sure there's something that adds onto your hip, but remember, we're not trying to overdo any rounding positions. Okay, now let's shift and take the chair behind us. So with care, I reach for my chair. I think the easiest way for me to move mine is my legs. And I move it back. Okay, and now I'm going to slide forward. If you want to do a little tapping on the legs, try to do the tapping without the legs bouncing, like not this. I'm going to tap my legs with my palms or my fists. They're both good. Okay. Or not to get the legs kind of trying to go into a trot. Legs don't trot. Okay. So come back to your blanket and bolster focus. You're going to get a couple blankets and you're going to stack them up. Okay. You're going to push the chair back behind you and place your blankets next to the chair. Bolster. Set it next to the blankets. Be sure you're enough away from the wall that you can. Now that doesn't sound like proper language skills there, but anyhow. You're away from the wall, so you don't have your feet touching it. But you're going to use a ball on the inside of the right leg, and you'll add your sand to the side. So we'll come into side sage. Right hip is open. Use the sand so that it helps put weight into your hip today. Now this could go horizontal and it could go lengthwise on the side. I'm not sure which I prefer. Some days I really do have a preference on it. Now make sure you don't bonk your head into the chair. You could be very close to it though. So you're going to lean down and let that right arm reach up. Now I have my chair pretty close today, so I can feel kind of the comforts of support. Yeah, you might lightly touch the wall. It's no big deal, just as long as it doesn't inhibit the stretch of your hip flexor. So feel where your head is comfy. Don't worry about, oh, should it be exactly on the ear? Should I have pressure on my eardrum? It's feeling your awareness get settled into this pose. So let the weight of your body feel the motion into the hip. And breathing expansive in the ribs. And relaxing your face. You know, when you switch sides, I want you to take a moment when you're sitting on the bolster. So you're going to lean into your left side, bring your right knee towards the left, and take a seat up on the bolster, chair behind you, and get a feel in cobbler's pose. So that would mean feet together, knees apart, and accommodate the tracking. Of course, I know you've done one side of stretch more than the other, so there's some differences. But you can put a sandbag across the feet, so the feet are together, and then my sand goes across, and then I center spine, ribs. This is it, right? It's nothing more advanced. Okay, now if the knees are really, if it's hard and they're shaky, you can put a block under each leg, and then it just makes it kind of easy. It's like, oh, I can just be and not really put any effort, except for most of us, there's probably some effort to keep the heart lifted. It's like forever effort sometimes, right? So you're trying to work on the spine centered up. You could reach your hands back to the chair and do some dynamic chest openers, but I don't want to stress my shoulders personally. So lift the shoulders on a shrug and exhale, roll them back. Let's do a few more of those. Lift and roll. Crunchy sounds. Some days more crunchy than others, huh? You know, when you feel the lift, feel what the breath does, the muscles of breathing, and then when they roll back, exhale. One more time, inhale, exhale. Okay, moving the blocks if you have them. Take side stage with the other hip. Okay, good work. So I know it's simple, but it's important. I think all the elementary stuff is the advanced stuff. So when I slide out, shake it out, or do some supportment, you choose, or none. Lean to the right hip. Feel how your balance is in your thigh. So my weight is in my right thigh. My sand is important to me for weight bearing in my hip. Yep. And interestingly enough, just for me and my science on my body, that is an area I improved on, which I find kind of strange, but improved. I was able to get some improvement in my hip density. There's probably a lot of factors on that one, isn't there? Not the sandbag on my hip. But anyhow, so we're working on basics. This is just basic stuff. So weight bearing into my right hip, sand support on the left. Left arm is up. If you're getting a little bit shifty on your balance, like this, it's waving back and forth. It's probably better to have a sandbag where you don't feel like you're having to, you know, mentally challenge to try to be centered when the sand is not steady. So whatever that means on the second side, it could be how your hip is slanted. There's probably so many factors, more than we can even think on, that you're organizing the body weight into your props. That includes the chair. If you're not using the chair for your hand, that's okay. If it hurts your shoulder, don't do it. It's not going to be helpful to do something that's painful. So feel the activity of your breathing and really sense that expansion and centering. Remember, weight is into the right hip, but I feel it a little bit on both. Make sure your head is comfortable. You want your brain to just relax. You know, let's let the body weight shift back. So you're stretching your torso, like you're tipping your hip back to the left. Okay, so the torso gets a stretch. Left hand down and move the sand probably just a little to your left side. Just be careful of your wrist, right? If it hurts your wrist, drop it to the right. Just be aware of all these things that it could enhance or worry. So I'm going to shift down to my right side. I'm going to bring the left knee over. And then as I lean in and come up, I'm going to push the bolster to the right. I'm going to shift back into my seat and have my ball and sand, and then lie back so that your spine is in its best centering position. So if you got a tired spine, those seated poses are just not your thing for whatever time you decide to do some self-care. Being on your back is a really good way to work your hip and spine without much irritation. So you're going to stretch your left leg on over to that bolster on the right side. Okay. So I like floor-based spine work, probably the best for my spine and my chest. It's just so natural and comfortable, but of course it gets more of that the more you do it. Okay, so take the sand and slide it up across the outer left thigh and get a feel of where that sand, if you don't want to use the sand, you can pass on it anytime, any of the poses that it's offered. But if you have the opportunity to use it and it feels like it's helpful, work so that the chest is open. This might be your most essential part of this. And that's helpful for the circulation into my arms and down into my hands and my wrists. So I try to let my hand relax, open the chest. Not always trying to flatten it out is going to be great. It's not always going to be the best thing for your wrist. So that natural hand curl is good. You know, baby hands. So the chest is open. And the spine is really arching on this one. If it actually feels pretty good in your back, or you don't even notice that it's anything, it's important to notice this is a back arch and it's a natural curve. It's quite healthy. There might be some conditions it wouldn't be something you want to enhance. So there's other things to think on, but if it feels okay, the body weight onto the leg. Actually, not the body weight, the sand weight onto the left leg. Unless it's a dog or something, huh? My cat would never lay on me in the stretch. I've never had a cat that would do that. I don't think I've ever known a cat. For me, kind of funny. Some people always say, oh, my cat lays on me when I do yoga. I never had that. So get the feeling of how the waist turns. I want you to scan how far you turn on this side. Just notice how the movement of the ribs into the chest piece is important. You probably have differences on the sides. You don't want to be reminded, maybe. But when you slide your sand off the left thigh, let's try to get to the second side quick. So you want to move the ball so you can reflect on that experience with that side to the next side quickly, so you don't lose some of that experience of the chest. So the bolster goes left, my body's going to shift to the right of the mat, and then I swing the right leg over. Okay. Now, if the ball goes to the sacrum, you might even, if you go, rather quickly between the sides, kind of adjustments happen naturally. I think a little more naturally if you go one side to the next carefully. Really keep the science going here. Nothing extra, no extra credit moves, special moves. Sand on the outer leg if possible, and use the ball for an anchor. Let the right arm open. Be careful that the arm is not lifted on something. I don't think that, I've seen that sometimes, but I can't see how that would be good for my shoulder. It would be good if you had an injury in your shoulder, you couldn't get your arm down. It would be okay to have a blanket under your arm. Or if it's just really stiff, it could happen. So let your head roll to the right and feel where you're stretching your right arm, just the right amount, not too much. You don't want to overly push into your reach of your arm where it's not natural at all. You might feel a little difference from one chest to the other as far as your range of motion. Sometimes I find this one interesting if I do more study on it on myself, that the hand that seems to have a little bit more difficulties or irritation or arthritic challenges, for me tends to be the more flexible side. And the other side that is a little bit more rigid, which is probably a good thing, has more tone. I find that's less. I don't have almost none in that hand. So just notice things, like try to find work on stability, not necessarily overly flexible. Just good measure of range of motion is all we want. And so give it a few more breaths. Your mind might already be on, what is my last pose today? So give it a few more moments of rustling through the ribs. Feel the movement of the belly. The stretch in the hip. Okay, slide the sand away. And as you move the ball, you'll get a feeling that you'll swing the body a little to the left. That's what I want you to do. So you go left, you'll bring your knees down, and then push to get up, and then move your bolster right up against the wall. Okay. Now, if you're going to do chair shoulder stand, you could set up for that. You know, keep in mind you're going to want to have a blanket on your chair, though, right? You don't want to have nothing on the chair for cushion. But otherwise, you can get your blanket here for your leg, for your lap, actually for your torso, right? So put the bolster next to the wall and then slide your hips to the wall and get a feeling here that your balance is, hold on here, let me get my feet on. It's a little cool. They're cooler. Darn. Okay, sit up to the wall and let your legs swing upside down. Okay, so feel where the lift is of your hips. That's important that you feel basically the essential hip lift. Kind of interesting. This is a nice gravitational shift in my breathing muscles and my abdominal muscles. My favorite thing to do is to get upside down. It's my go-to. It's kind of a thing you can do mostly anywhere. I mean, if you're wherever you are, if you're traveling, you can get your legs upside down, even if they're just on a chair. Okay. So you're going to add a sandbag, if you like, not required. A bag of sand, a bag of rice. I know you could probably like warm up a bag of something and put a weight on your feet. That could be really nice. I don't think I've ever done that. So the feet, if they are working into a very strong flex, it might be a nice thing to change up every once in a while to get this really strong flex. Be careful the sand isn't too far forward on your toes, because once you kind of center in, it might slide. You have to have it sort of towards the roots of the toes to get that flex there, don't you? You have that little bit of a mystery here. Okay. All right, so the hands are going to settle beside you. If you're in the chair position, you're probably having to hold the legs of the chair, not the sides of you. And then add that blanket support on the waist for those of us in the wall one. And let the arms settle by the sides. Remember, they're lower than the heart. Yeah, and if you're in a major inversion, right, with the chair, then it's quite a flip of blood flow to the heart, brain, circulation shift in the stomach muscles. So feeling where the chest opens. Letting the eyes center into the face. Back into the brain more so than the face. And relaxing your breath. Scan the shoulders so they're centering back. The chest is gently open. And the circulation is generating to strengthen the heart and the lungs, but also it's relaxing the heart, right? Because the circulation that you would normally need to or be required to put down to your feet from the heart pumping, it's turning it back to the heart without it having to effort. So reverses the flow of gravity to the heart. Resting the organs with the movement of breath, flushing them out. And rejuvenating the glands in the throat. Swallow to clear the passageway of the throat. And now feel the feet. If you're at the wall, you can just gently guide the feet a little bit away from the wall. You still want to maintain that verticality with the legs stretching straight up with the feet pushing into the sand. And then of course you always feel the sand pushing into you. That's the weight bearing. That's the load. Now, as you bend through the legs, feel the muscles of the back of you, not just legs, but everything has to kind of push away with the reverse flow. You might not make it a big deal of movement, but transfer the sand to the side. And then as the weight is into your upper back, if you're at the chair, you'll have to kind of shift yourself down to meet us in this position. But you want to feel that the knees are scooping in towards the chest. I actually really like the blanket because it's a nice little light massage into my digestive tract. So I like the old school teachings of that. I can make it more intense by rolling it into a kind of a noodle, but I'll work with this one. Okay, now when you roll to the side, you might actually just push your blanket over and slide away, and then come on up to sit. Sometimes you slide out of that when you can't get back up the right way, but so be it. So let's take a moment just simply sitting upright, acknowledging the awareness and all the work that you've done in this session today. It was quite a lot. So some gratitude for your practice, for yourself, and supporting others. Bring your hands up in front of your heart, inhaling together. And exhale, bowing into the space behind your heart. Namaste.